for these by the fireside with the ATOMECY chats, what I'm looking to do is basically just have some chill, relaxed chats with chill, relaxed cats. You know what I mean? Like,
Cool cat.
You can tell. But yeah, like, I think that there's a lot to be said about state of the world that we're in, the history of the world that we've lived through and before us, and what's about to smack us in the face.
There was more freedom back then than there is now. You don't have the freedom to go hunt a deer without getting a license. You don't have the freedom to drive a car without going and getting a license.
And there wasn't as much lawlessness in the West as we're led to believe by Hollywood.
Oh, of course. There was some, but the problem is that lawlessness was met with equal force. Lawlessness, equal force.
Yeah.
So you're a horse thief. Well, if you get caught, you're going to die.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
Right? There. Well, that's just what it is, right? Like you're a horse thief, they catch you, they're dragging you through the streets, you're going to die. And because there was more freedom to protect yourself back then than there is now. Mm. If someone breaks into your house, you don't have the freedom to protect yourself without a pile of litigation. Right. So you have the freedom to live within the boundaries of the current society's mold, I guess.
Social contract.
The social construct changes from time to time. So when you say freedom, because I mean, there's also people who take it to an extreme, like free man on the land. You've probably heard of.
Yes, I definitely heard of them.
I know nothing about it because it doesn't apply to me. But from what I understand is that they don't submit to the laws of the land in terms of their own personal lives. And I disagree with and I'm not saying I agree with it. I disagree with it in certain areas, because if you want to drive a car and you want to drive on roads that are paved and maintained by the government, then you need to pay taxes and licenses to kind of go into that side of things.
So there's different, I guess, intensities or philosophies on that even on the free man on the land thing. Is they recognize, the sane ones recognize that you still need hospitals, you still need a lot of stuff that society
infrastructure
has to offer. What the true freeman on the land philosophy is, from what I understand, have been able to understand since, I don't know, about 15 years now, is the ability to opt out. So if I do opt out of the general transportation system and licensing and all that, the licensing aspect and registration and insurance and all the requirements to participate in the transportation system as set up by the Society of Canada, then I need to comply with those rules. I can't just be a dick and say, no, everybody else has to do it, but I get the same benefits from.
Of course, that makes no sense.
But there's a lot of people who think that that's what they can do, and
well, they're wrong.
They're getting away with it. Some of them do get away with it, but
yes, well, you get away with it not because it's acceptable, but because there's no systems in place to deal with it, or you don't get caught. But if you want to live without any of the rules that society has, then you need to go to places that there is no society. You want to go to Crown Land up in Nunavut or Yukon or Northwest Territories or Alaska, or pick any random.
It's still Crown Land, though. That's the thing.
Right, but they're not going to bother you there. You want to live in a cabin. You want to squat in a little cabin, live off the grid, like Dick Prenicky or whatever. Then you know what? No one's going to stop you, because why would they stop you?
Well, let's talk about a local example. So here in New Brunswick, we have a Crown Land called Kushabiquak Park. And there was a family who were well established on that piece of land, I think, for at least a couple generations. And the government just recently kicked them off the land.
Yeah, but whose land was it? Crown Land?
Yeah.
Then that's their prerogative, and it can happen. So now they've opted to not live within society. Society has grown to that border, and now they've got to move to another remote location. Yeah. That's my take on it.
So basically, if you want to be a freeman or that type of sovereign person, then don't expect to set any roots.
Pretty much.
Just sacrifice the roots.
Yes, because you're free and you're solidary, you're single. You can't fight the corporation. You can't fight the society, the group of people. There's one person cannot stand up to the population. So, and this is my take on what is true freedom. And as long as you own property, you are not free.
I agree with that.
You're free to an extent to use that property, provided you pay the taxes and pay the
You're
the
among
dues.
the freest of the unfree.
Yes and no. There are some people who have hacked the system and are very free, but they're free because they don't care and they realize that owning property is a fallacy. And this goes back to the gypsies and the people who are travelers and they don't have a home. Nomads. They don't have an actual place. So when you don't own a place, then you are free. You're truly free when you own. And this is where people get all up in arms, just like, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. It's like, well, there's actually some truth to that.
Yeah, there is. I don't dare say it, but
well, there definitely is, because the less you own, the less you have to care and maintain.
This is true. ATOMECY is autonomy, which is freedom, basically. Having freedom, possessing it. Self-agency, which is the other half of ATOMECY, is the ability to exercise said freedom. Because there's a lot of people in the world who are free, recognize they're free, but still don't act upon it. And my goal with ATOMECY is to highlight on different types of freedom, different perspectives of freedom, and furthermore, how to take action on it. And I'm not saying that I'm going to be the oracle of freedom and how to take action on it, but the reason why I want to do By the Fireside chats with ATOMECY is because I want to talk with other people and see how they've managed to get a little bit of freedom in their life. And it doesn't mean that they have the perfect recipe for everybody or even themselves. Maybe they're still in the process of mastering it. I sure hope so. I think it's an ongoing endeavor. I think that everybody has different methods of, like, when I look at you and me, you've achieved different ways of freedom in your life than I've achieved different ways of freedom in my life. But nonetheless, we both have achieved some forms of freedom.
Your definition of freedom is not going to be the same as someone else's. Someone else's definition of freedom is working within the system and not having to think for themselves. They feel more free knowing that I'll just give half my communist style. I just give my money to the government and they take care of me. And that's freedom because I don't have to think about anything. And to you, that's definitely not, or me, that's definitely not a form of freedom. That's a form of oppression. But to that person, their definition of freedom is not needing to put effort into taking care of themselves, let someone else take care of them. But that's their definition of freedom. So this is the problem, is the word freedom means different things to different people.
I wouldn't say problem. I would say the opportunity to explore and discover. It's such a open...
Well, it's a problem. It's definitely a problem for people who have opposing values. Because if the overwhelming majority defines freedom in a different way than one person, then that person becomes unfree.
But as long as it's both from the first person's perspective, then they're both free, nonetheless. I only see it as a problem from a third-person managerial perspective, like a government or something like that, who was like, I don't want these two to have different freedom. But if you're living your freedom life on your own terms and someone else is living their freedom life on their own terms...
Yes, but the problem is, the word problem again, is that those two different opposing views or dichotomies of definition of freedom causes one side to not be free. So therefore you cannot have ultimate freedom.
Not necessarily. It's possible for sure.
It's probable. Someone defines freedom as being able to walk down the street and not worry about getting robbed by gunpoint. Therefore, gun control is super important. The other person says, I should be the right to have guns because I need to protect myself and hunt. They're a dichotomy, and one person's going to always be at odds with the other. And in a free country, they're going to be opposing views. That's just an example.
I think that depends on how the third-party manager spins it. And that's that situation that we're in right now in Canada, and have been since the 1970s. We've got the left-wing liberal governments who are making it seem like a Hunter Joe Blow out in the country is a threat to somebody in downtown Toronto or something like that. And that's a perversion of reality. That's just not the case. It's the gang members who are not using legal guns that you cannot control. In fact, the more you try to control it, just like with drugs, the worse it'll be.
Thus, my theory of you cannot have ultimate freedom if society's general consensus is different than your own.
If society's general consensus is to have a third-party manager, yeah? For the person who's free, competent, and able to live independently, they don't have the choice to opt out of the third-party manager.
Freedom.
From an employment perspective, we do. I have the opportunity to opt out of being a slave to some other guy's dream. Instead, I can be a slave to my own.
Yes, but again, like I mentioned earlier, this comes down to definition. Somebody else's dream of freedom is not having to... So being self-employed is...
But I'm not hurting anybody else's freedom by being self-employed.
No, of course not. But some people's definition of self-employment is certainly not freedom. In fact, it's a prison.
Sure, yeah.
Which is... And then other people's definition of being employed is the same thing. It's a prison. So it's...
I mean, you can turn water into wine, but you can also take that very wine and turn it into vinegar.
So, yeah. So what I'm saying is the definition of autonomy or freedom is very different from person to person.
Sure. I'm totally fine with that. I embrace that. I like that diversity in that. And I think it should be that way. Well, it shouldn't be uniform.
And also, I think that certain people do not desire freedom to a full extent.
That's their freedom of choice.
Yes.
Like, if you want to be nanny state, hardcore govern me daddy type, you know what? Give her. Just don't make me pay for it. Don't make me have to be compliant to it as well. Don't make me jump into the snake pit with you because you want to be in the snake pit.
But unfortunately, like we said already, the society's norm at the time dictates that. So for instance, my tax dollars, my current tax dollars that I pay out of my salary, of my job or my income, whether I'm self-employed or not, I pay taxes, have no choice. There's no way to get around that. Unless you make no money. Goes to the government. The government takes a portion of that tax dollars and they fund public education. And the public education system is teaching concepts that, in my opinion, are wrong. I do not have the freedom to stop paying taxes, even though they're funding something that goes fundamentally against my core belief system, as an example.
Yeah, that's...
Because society is dictated as this is the norm, and you are in our system, therefore you are now funding something that you disagree with.
Yeah.
My only option is to stop making money. Well, that's my only option.
No, there's legal options.
Well, no, because your tax. There's no way to stop paying taxes unless you don't make money, and the tax dollars that you spend get divvied up to fund different municipal and provincial and federal endeavors, initiatives. 5 cents to the dollar on my tax dollar goes to the education system. I'm going to homeschool my kids, therefore my taxes should be lowered because I'm not taking advantage of this service.
Oh man, preaching to the choir on that one. That's what I'm saying. Like, we should be able to opt in, opt out, and based on what you opt in, opt out of, you should have pay proportionately for that. Listen, like, I get it. Like, there's people out there that need more than other people.
Or want more.
Both.
Services.
Both want more. I can have that, right? Type of situations. But here's the thing. There's a premium for that. Just like with everything else in life, for the most part. In private life, in the private world, you want the bigger, better stuff, there's a premium for that.
There's a certain amount of our money goes to healthcare,
Which is,
which is a enormous amount. But the fact is that if you live in this country, eventually you're going to need healthcare of some sort, and it's going to be there, and you're going to take advantage of it. So if you're not in the current system, then theoretically you shouldn't have an advantage to have that either. If you're not in the current system,
right? So what there should be. So here's what I'm saying. That's perfectly fine. But stop blocking private healthcare,
right,
as an option. If you're going to do that, the public nanny state, fine, do it. Don't make me pay for it. When I'm sick, I'll get my own insurance. Like, I pay for my own healthcare insurance.
Yeah.
When I get sick or whatever, I want to be able to go to a private option.
I mean, you still can.
Not in a lot of places.
You can. You just have to know. I know many people who do, and there's.
Well, you can be like our politicians and stuff, and just go down to the United States,
or Mexico, or Thailand. But there's also local areas. Like if you want to get an MRI, you can wait on the waiting list for a month and a half, or 2 months, or 3 months, whatever the current waiting list. Or you can go down to the shop on Mapleton and get it done in 3 days.
Downtown, yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. That's just MRIs, and even that is being fought against.
Yeah, but that's.
It's like, it's stupid. Like why? Why fight against that?
Well, the reason they do that is because they don't want the rich to get preferential treatment.
Which they already have.
Which they already have. And ironically, the rich are contributing more to the tax base to pay for the free healthcare system than anyone else is anyways. So it's almost like if someone's making 500 grand a year, their tax dollars, they're paying more taxes than someone making 50,000 a year.
Oh, yeah.
That's just the way it is. No matter what, no matter how you cut it, they're making more tax. Even if they're self-employed and they have a business and they write everything off and their personal income tax is less, the revenue generation of the company because of their efforts and intelligence and
taxing
actions,
all their clients
and taxing their clients and pulling in HST and paying taxes to employees is far outweighs Bob's $50,000 a year salary. So the money that they're bringing into the healthcare system far surpasses that of the normal average citizen. And if they want to go pay for it separately, they're paying out of their pocket anyways. So
above and beyond.
Above and beyond. So it's not like they're like, well, I'm not going to pay. I'll pay less taxes and pay for my healthcare. No. So yes, I don't see any reason why. The problem I think might be is that that more healthcare providers might lean toward the private and becomes less options for the people who are in the public system. And I'm not talking out of experience. I'm way out of my league. This is just musings.
The way I've always seen it was this way, and this recent documentary I watched confirmed it. If you have more options, like private, you're going to lower the congestion in the public right off the bat. People are going to pay the premium to go to the private, to not have to wait in line.
Well, of course, the same as the highway systems in Toronto.
And then when
the 401, which is everyone's highway.
And when you take 10% off of that, it's going to make it. It's going to actually immediately increase the quality of service.
You get the 401 in Toronto that goes through Toronto, right? That's the main highway system. It's always congested and clogged. Then you have the 407, which is a paid option.
Yeah.
And it's not cheap. Like you pay to use that highway system. A lot of people do that because it's like, well, I'll use the 407. I'll pay my $35 for the day to drive this highway to get from one end of Toronto to the other. And so all the traffic that would have been on the 401 is now all that, not all of it, but a percentage of it now is over here.
Maybe,
Well, maybe 5% or 10%.
Okay.
I don't know what the number is. Regardless, the people who would have been driving here are now over here, which is less congested here. Yeah, I mean, sure, it's still way faster to, so it is considered a premium or a luxury for people who can afford to drive on this highway. Yeah, now they can get to work to and fro in 35 minutes as opposed to an hour and a half. So they can afford it. They choose to do it. But again, it's the same thing with the healthcare system. If you have a paid option, you're going to remove people from the free option, well, free quote unquote, and it should decongest it. But that's
right off the bat. And tax the private, tax them.
Well, they already do.
Well, no, we don't have it. So bring in the private, tax them.
Of course we do. If you want to go pay for an MRI, you're going to pay tax.
That's just one small example. That's not a reflection of our current state of affairs. So tax the shit out of them and use that money to fund the public healthcare system so that they can get more doctors and nurses and more better equipment and so on and so forth. It's nonsensical.
I think so. Going back to freedom, I think what it comes down to is the less you have responsibility for, the more freedom.
Have you delved into the world of artificial intelligence yet?
To an extent. I mean, I play with ChatGPT a little bit.
What kind of stuff do you do with ChatGPT?
Not much, because I'm more of an artsy soul, if you would. I don't see the creative side in it. It's very...
The value, like?
Yeah. I mean, it's great for doing simple automations and things, you know, writing little scripts, writing chats, searching information and spitting it out. So utilitarian purposes, I guess I see it as being helpful. But in terms of, I've seen AI generated artwork, and from what I've seen, for the most part, it's very technical and intricate, but it doesn't have soul. Now, I've also seen some instances with some popular video photographer people, and they're showing how it can transform landscapes to show imagery. Like you could have a barren landscape of a winterscape and then have it at a cabin with snow on the roof, and it looks like it would have been there. The biggest problem with it is it's going to incur more suspicion as to what's real and what's not.
Oh, definitely. Especially with those deep fake videos.
Exactly.
Those are, I think, I'm seeing people already getting fooled by them. I'm seeing like ones where they're able to track, they're using video tracking, and they're tracking in post, right? And actually they can do it live too. I've seen them actually do it friggin' live, like with a basketball game. But they're tracking a player and they got all their points, right, of their outline, and it is replaced video graphically with a robot to make it look like this is where robots are at right now. But really what they're showing is this is where AI is at right now, like the video editing aspect of it. I see a lot of benefits to it. And I'm glad that you're able to look at it and not see any soul, because it doesn't have any soul. It's soulless, and it should remain obvious always when we're looking at something that's fake, that it's fake. I don't want to be deceived. I want to be able to look at something that was done by a human and have a special appreciation for that, that's unique to that art or whatever. And then I want to see something that's created by a machine or AI or whatever. And I want to be able to appreciate what it's doing too, as long as it's positive, right? I mess around with the ChatGPT thing myself every once in a while. When it first came out, like I was saying earlier, when it first came out, I was just like, didn't even notice it, didn't even hit my radar. And then about a month after, I was just like, this is different. I spent the following month, the full month, up to like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. I went nuts on that thing. I went absolutely deep dive crazy on it. And then near the end of that month, I was like, oh shit. I just taught this thing how to think like me, how to, you know what I mean? Like, I just gave it a bit of my creativity, my uniqueness.
Where I'm at in my life is not, I'm more about now experiences than I am about information. And so AI cannot replicate experiences.
But it can assist them.
In what way?
A person could use AI to help them plan and budget an entire road trip. They could build into that plan an entire YouTube strategy with a posting calendar, telling you what kind of posts to make, when to make them, how frequently, with which hashtags, like boom, 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 boom. And it can totally guide that person and save them a ton of watching thousands of hours of videos to get the same information. And that's even if they can remember it all.
Yes, but the problem with that is that information comes cheap, action is expensive.
No, I'm not saying it's replacing it, it's assisting.
Yeah, it's assisting in it. But
it's making your action cheaper.
If people actually listen to it, which they won't.
Maybe.
The information's already there. It's the challenge with
it's just spread out everywhere.
The challenge with information is now information is cheap, but it's the execution is the challenging part. Before it was, I don't know how to do this, so I can't do it. Now it's, I have 1,000 different methods of knowing how to do this. I just don't do it.
Overwhelmed with options. It's like you go to a restaurant with a big, massive menu of like 10 pages.
Right, and we've already been there. We've been here for a while now with Google. I mean, just like there's nothing you can't, and YouTube, there's nothing you can't learn how to do.
It's just more, it just makes it more efficient.
You want to learn how to build a house? There's a million resources right now you could go look up step by step on showing you how to build a house.
You got to find the right one that's looking for the type of house that you're looking for and the type of area, Whereas you can just tell ChatGPT or similar machines to, hey, I want to build this house, give me the plan for it, and then within 5 minutes you've got the whole thing.
Yeah, it would help with that for information distribution again.
Boom, right quick, centralized, sorted out to your preferences and I mean, at this stage, you could probably even tell it to design your blueprints. Okay, you got the blueprints. Now create a shopping list of all my construction materials and give me 4 different locations in my city where I can get all of these materials and probably at the best price. It's like
it's almost like they kind of forecasted that with like Star Trek.
They did Gene Roddenberry with CIA.
Computer, design me.
Star Trek did forecast a lot of stuff though. Star Trek, even Star Wars did. You know what I think is one that's really close to our times right now? This is the first time I say this out loud. Battlestar Galactica.
Never watched it.
That series, I mean, it's been years since I've watched it, so my memory on the details is fuzzy, obviously, but they had like these different factions, and one of them was like these priest-like figures, and it was the new religion that was created for like this future civilization type deal, and they have like AI type, I don't know if they actually called them AI in it, I can't remember. I remember she was a really hot blonde, but they had this like AI powered droid, like android type people, and they had like different kinds of like political factions as well. But like the clergyman or I can't remember what they were called, aligns with how I see AI replacing all the different religions in the world currently with a new whatever religion. I think that's its goal, one of its big goals. And I didn't come up with that on my own. Like Yuval Harari, that guy, that skinny dude with the glasses, who's always talking about how AI is gonna like take over stuff, and
I have no clue. I don't know that.
He wrote a book called Sapiens. I got a copy of it. He's forecasting that there's going to be a new religion, and that it's going to be a one religion for like to unite them all type of thing. And the more we use AI and feed it who we are and what we are, who knows, it could be already too late, but how long have they been really, they just made it public that they've been using that. It might already have enough information to either wipe us out as a species or completely change our societies or what our ways of thinking. And we all know how complacent and compliant people are, especially when they got a little bit of fear in them. It's definitely a threat.